Добрий день, шановні колеги. Я
Greetings,
сподіваюся, що
dear
ми вже
colleagues.
в
I
ефірі.
hope that we are
Тому
live
і нас всі чують,
and
бачать.
everybody can see
Ми
us and
зібрали
everybody can
сьогодні
hear us.
на
So we gathered
офіційне
today here to
засідання
have our
конкурсної
official meeting
комісії
of the
з
selection
відбору
commission
кандидата
to
на
select the
посаду
head
голови агентства
for
грошового
the
менеджменту активів.
agency
В нас присутні
ARMA.
всі члени
We
комісії,
have all of the
саме
members
Вульф
of the
Тільман
commission are
Баумерт,
present, in
Сергій
particular
Бут,
Wolf Tillman
Анжеліка Крусян,
Baumann, Serhiy But,
Валентина
Angelika Krusyan,
Лук'янець-Шахова,
Valentina
Катерина
Lukyanets-Shachova,
Риженко і Ріта
Katarina
Самош.
Reshenko, and
Тому
Rita
пропоную
Samosh.
починати
So I
офіційно
suggest that we start
наше
our official
засідання.
meeting.
І сьогодні в нас на
And
порядку
today
денному
on
основне
our
питання – це
agenda, we've
розгляд
got the
скарг,
main
які
question, which
комісія
is
отримала
review of the complaints
після
that the
проведення
Commission received
тестування на
after
когнітивні
the
здібності
aptitude
минулого
test,
тижня.
which
Ну
took
і
place last
інші
week, as well
питання, які
as the
можуть
other
виникнути в
questions that might
залежності від обговорення голосувань
appear
комісії.
depending on the discussion
Тому
of how
прошу
the Commission would
підтримати
vote.
такий порядок
So I would
денний, а
like you
саме
to ask you
розгляд
to
скарг двох
support
кандидатів
such an agenda, in
на
particular
комісію
the review
щодо
of the complaints
проведення
of the two
тесту на
candidates to the
когнітивні
Commission
здібності та
regarding the
інше.
aptitude test and other things.
Шановні члени
Dear
комісії,
members of
ваш
Commission,
голос, пане
I
Вульф.
would like to ask for your voices, Mr. Wolf.
Чи підтримуєте, пан Вульф, ви порядок денний?
Mr. Wolf, would you like to support the agenda for the day?
Yes, I support the agenda.
Дякую. Пане Сергію?
Mr.
Я
Serhiy,
голосую за
I
запропонований
would like
порядок
to
денний.
vote
Дякую.
yes to
Пані
support the
Анжеліко?
suggested order.
Я голосую
Madame
за
Angelica,
порядок денний.
I vote for the
Дякую. Пані
agenda of the
Валентино?
day. Madame Valentina,
Голосую за запропонований порядок
I
денний.
vote for the
Дякую.
suggested
Я
agenda
теж
of the day.
голосую за порядок
I also
денний. І
vote
пані
for
Ріто?
the suggested day. And Madame Rita?
I also vote for.
Дякую.
Thank you.
Тоді, пані Анжеліко?
Well, in this case,
Отже,
Madame
щодо
Angelica,
результатів
well,
голосування
regarding the
за
results of this
запропонований
voting,
порядок денний, за
for
6
the
членів
agenda,
комісії,
6 members
проти
of commission
утрималось
voted
немає.
for,
Рішення прийнято
nobody abstained,
одноголосно.
and nobody was
Дякую.
against
Тоді
it. We got an
переходимо
unanimous
безпосередньо
decision.
до
So let's
обговорення
go
питання.
now
Першого,
straight to
саме
the
скарг.
discussion of the
Ми
question, in particular the
станом
complaints.
на сьогодні, ну,
As
як безпосередньо
for
було відведено,
this
як
day,
передбачено
and
нашими
as
документами,
it is
прийнятими
provided by
комісією,
the documents
після
that the
кожного
Commission
етапу є
approved,
можливість
after
кандидатам
every single stage,
звернутися
the
із
candidates have an
скаргами до
opportunity to reach out with
комісії.
complaints to the Commission.
Минулі рази ми не отримували
In
такі
the
скарги на
previous
попередні
times, we
етапи
did not
проведення
receive such
конкурсу.
complaints,
Станом на зараз ми
but
маємо
as for
дві
now,
скарги
we've got
від
two complaints
Нікітіна Дмитра
from
Юрійовича та
Nikitin Dmitro
Муржи
Yutiv
Володимира
and
Калмановича.
Murshid
Обидві скарги
Volodymyr
надійшли на
Kalmanovich.
до комісії
Both complaints, they
27
came to the
березня
to the Commission on the 27th of
відповідно в межах встановлених часом
March 2026.
комісії на
Therefore,
подання
within the
таких скарг.
framework of time
Ці
that
дві
Commission
скарги,
has set aside to turn
для тих,
such
хто нас
complaints.
слухає, для
For those
розуміння,
who are watching
про
and
що
listening to
мова
us,
йде.
to
Дві
have a better
скарги
understanding of what we are
стосуються
talking about, two of
приблизно
the
одного і того
complaints,
ж
they
питання,
basically
а що
more or less
саме
touch
того,
one and
що
the
під
same
час
question. In particular,
проведення тесту на
during
когнітивні
the
здібності,
aptitude test,
ці кандидати
the candidates
не відчували себе
claimed that they did not feel
комфортно
themselves
і таким
comfortable
чином не
and
могли
safe enough, and because of that, they could not
свої тести.
turn their
І,
tests, pass their
наприклад,
tests in a
пан
good quality way. And in particular, Mr. Murja, the candidate Murja, in such a way asks us to review the opportunity, reconsider the opportunity for him to repass the test, the cognitive skills test, and Mr. Nikitin asks us to recognize the fact that the cognitive skills test took place with the essential violations of the security questions, and he also claims that tests should be considered as such that didn't take place, and that we should reassign the repetitive testing for the cognitive skills
достатніми
with
вимогами щодо
the
безпеки,
sufficient
до приміщень, в які проходять
security
відповідний етап
measures in the
конкурсу.
facility
Що
where the
має
testing takes place.
комісія, які
So what
моменти
we
необхідно
as a
перед
commission,
прийняттям
what do
рішення
we have
врахувати, в
to
тому числі всі, хто
consider
нас слухає,
before
щоб вони теж
the
розуміли
making the decision?
стан
So
і взагалі процес
we
проходження тесту. 24
need to
березня
let everybody
тест
know what was
почався
taking
з
place.
1
The
години
test
до 2:30.
started from 1 o'clock to 2:30 on the 24th of March.
В ньому
That
взяли
was
участь
an aptitude
13
test,
кандидатів,
and
які
13
претендують на
candidates
посаду
took
голови
part in
АРМА.
that testing, those
І
who are
дійсно,
candidates to
паралельно
become
з
the head for
тестом
ARMA.
з
And yes, it is true
12:35 в
that
місті
as of
Києві було оголошено
12:35,
повітряну тривогу.
Kyiv city
Вона
was under the air
вона
raid
почалась
alarm.
як до початку
It
проведення
started
тесту, так і тривала
before the
під
beginning
час
of the
проведення
test, and it
тесту і
also lasted throughout
закінчилась,
the test,
не помиляюсь,
and
після
it
5-ї
finished,
години
if
вечора.
I'm not mistaken, after 5
Таким
o'clock in
чином,
the afternoon.
тест і
In such a way,
тестування на загальні
the
здібності
test
дійсно
for
проходив
the
під час повітряної
for the
тривоги в місті
cognitive
Київ.
skills, yes, it did take place during the
Відповідно,
air raid alarm in the
якщо
city of
подивитися
Kyiv.
на
And
порядок
therefore, if you
проведення
look at the
конкурсного
order
відбору,
of
який
the selection,
комісія конкурсна
which the selection commission
затвердила на
that we
початку
have,
своєї
which we
роботи,
confirmed in the
то в
beginning
статті
of our work,
12
then we can
закріплено,
say that
що
in the Article
у
12,
разі,
it is said that in
по-перше, ми
case,
проводимо
first of all,
конкурсний відбір,
we
конкурсні
do the
процедури
selection
з
and
урахуванням
all of the
і
procedures
нового
with the
режимового
consideration
стану
of the
та
martial law,
безпекової ситуації в
legal
Україні.
status, and the
А також
security
у
situation
разі
in Ukraine.
повітряної
And
тривоги
also, in case of
процедура
the air raid alarm,
призупиняється і
the procedure
поновлюється
is
після відбою,
paused
окрім
and is
випадків,
restarted
коли такі
after the
конкурсні
end of such an air
заходи
raid alarm,
відбуваються у приміщенні, що
unless
дозволяє
the
організацію належних заходів
events is taking
безпеки.
place in the
Це
facilities
може
that
бути
is
укриття,
provided with the
сховище
secure
тощо.
measures.
Це
That could be a
безпосередньо наш
shelter
порядок конкурсного відбору, який
or
закріплений і
etc.
опублікований на сайті
This
Кабінету
is
Міністрів
exactly the
України.
order that was officially published on the
Приміщення, в якому
website of the Cabinet of
проходили
Ministers of
тести
Ukraine.
на
The
загальні
facility where
здібності,
tests for general cognitive skills, the aptitude test,
мабуть, не варто оголошувати тут
probably
зайвий
we
раз
don't need to
приміщення,
announce
хоча, в принципі,
extra
ми вже
time
тести
about where
відбулися.
exactly the facility
Але
was,
відповідно
even though the
до
tests
є
already took
довідки
place. But as
самого
a
від
statement
компанії, яка
from
володіє
the
цим
company that owns
приміщенням,
the facility,
так і
we,
після вивчення
just
нормативної
like
бази, яка регулює ці
after we
питання,
have studied the
варто
regulation
зазначити,
that
що
regulates the
у приміщенні, в якому
utilization of the facilities, it
відбувалося
is worth
тестування
noting that the
на загальні
facility that
здібності,
was used to take general skills, the facility complied to the general security requirements on the level of the simple coverage, simple shelter that is regulated by our legislation. Here we need to mention that there should be a proper thickness of the walls, the presence of windows. And so from the very, very beginning of the selection, we received that such information from the company who owned the facility. And so we took that to consideration. And therefore, during the air raid alarm, the commission did not stop the testing due to that reason. And therefore, we did not suggest any options to the candidates so that they could relocate to the rather secure place, because our order required the organization of tests and other events in the facilities with the decent level of safety and security. And so we, as members of commission, we considered that such facility that we had in use was fit. But we have checked the complaints. We have also studied some additional materials regarding the statements of the regulation and also regarding the status of the facilities. So I do not want to take any extra time of yours. I wanted to suggest to the members of the commission, with the consideration of such a serious question, I would like to suggest that we go to discussion first and then to voting. If any of you as members of commission, if you want to, first of all, before we do the discussion, to speak up, and you're very much welcome. The floor is yours. Dear members of the commission, do any one of you have anything to say regarding the situation regarding the complaint and information that you have studied as a preparation to this meeting. We also have some of the members of commission who were present there. So, Mr. Sahis, the floor is yours. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Since I was among the members of the commission that were directly present on the very testing, therefore, I need to confirm the fact that Madame Katarina have just spoke of. The only thing that I would like to say is that, truly speaking, the testing took place during the announced air raid alarm in the city of Kyiv. And when I was present on that location during the very testing, at least I did not have anybody from the candidates who would reach out to me with the ideas that we perhaps need to shift the time for testing, or should we go into the other facility. And therefore, during the testing, there were no complaints, there were no considerations that were suggested from anybody who was present there. So I just wanted to take, to inform you of that. The rest of the things that you have just announced to us, everything was properly said. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Serhiy, Madam Angelika. Thank you, Madam Katerina. I also was physically present while the testing was taking place, the aptitude testing. And as far as myself, as far as what I want to say regarding the complaints, I did study both complaints, just like the rest of the members of the commission. I want to know the following. Yes, truly speaking, according to the Article 12, as Madam Katerina mentioned, for the order of the selection, we the procedures that are related to selection should be in the secure situation. But I also want to mention that we have, it's stated here that the selection can continue in case if the proper security is ensured. So the key phrase here is proper security measures. So once again, let me just repeat, in accordance to the documents that we've turned in accordance to the statement from the company that owns the facility, I just want to say that the facility was not just selected from the scratch. It was as a result of the tender competition, which set some requirements due to the fact that this facility is rather safe. And so we really kept up and maintained everything. It was defined that the level of the security that the facility provides is fit. It has certain characteristics. And as far as those characteristics, I did see those characteristics. There were no windows. There were sufficient number of exits, so on and so forth. So as far as the requirements for the safety during the selection, I want to say that we have completely kept those requirements. Regarding what Mr. Serhiy just mentioned, yes, since I was present, once again, I want to repeat that I was present there physically during the testing. I also can confirm that during the testing and before the testing, and truly speaking, the air raid alarm started, if I'm not mistaken, maybe half an hour before the beginning of the testing. And so we did not have any complaints from the candidates, not a single one of the candidates. There were no statements to, nobody suggested that they do not want to participate. Nobody reached out to commission with the concern that this is not secure to stay here. Nobody was talking about themselves or the life and security of their relatives. We had no complaints, no statements. The complaints that we have now, they appeared once the results of the testing appeared, when the candidates didn't manage to go through the threshold, go beyond the threshold, which allows me to think that this question of safety is used not as a real problem, but as a reason to rerun the aptitude testing in the way that is not provided by current legislation. Because truly speaking, I do not see that there are legal grounds for the repetitive testing it is not provided. It is not provided by the law, by the legislation, by the current legislation. And in our order, in our internal documents, we also do not have grounds for that. Documents that were developed in accordance with the current legislation. So we have no norms, no reasons to relaunch the testing due to the fact that post factum we found that there were, in case, not the most convenient conditions. And perhaps I'm running ahead of the train, but let me just express my opinion. If we would come up with such a decision, that, in my opinion, would mean that we go beyond the authorities that are given to us as a commission, and we, in such a way, we violate the principle of legality, principle of equality, since some of the candidates, well, since all of the candidates, they get an additional opportunity that would be stage 2, another stage of the selection, one more chance, which might not be very just to another participants, in particular the person who already successfully passed the testing. You know, the legal expectations, you know, are all violated. So yeah, I think that these principles are violated here, and we can create a precedent when any selection outcomes we can subject it to doubts after it's completed, even though I need to say that we have completely no grounds to satisfy such complaint, in particular to rerun the aptitude testing as round 2 of the testing, and in order to satisfy such complaints. And therefore, as a conclusion, I would like to say that the requirements of the security were kept. The procedure was organized in the good way. We do not have legal grounds for second testing, for second running of the test. This is my opinion. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Angelica. I don't see any more hands raised from my position. I just want to say the following, that as for this time and date, with the consideration of the characteristics of the facility that we received, the most important question that we as Commission have to raise, we need to figure out whether we truly provided the secure conditions for people to be during the selection. In our terms, we do not say that there should be very specific requirements like certified shelter or shelter of certain category and ranking. We're just talking about the secure conveniences for running the selection, which could be represented in the variety of options for the participants of the selections. Not exclusively the shelter that has got official registration, certification, etc. This is very important for us to mention also to those people who are now watching and listening to us, and as well as to all of the participants of the selections to figure out the logics of the Commission. Yes, Madam Angelica. Let me just add that, truly speaking, perhaps I did not emphasize it very much on that in the very rules, in the very Article 12, it is said the key thing is the decent security measures. It is not necessarily to be in the shelter, in the official shelter, on officially recognized shelter. Once again, as we look into the rules, the most important thing that is stated is decent security measures. And in my opinion, decent security measures were there. Definitely, we are just discussing, sorry for interrupting you. Therefore, in one of the complaints it was mentioned that the facility was with windows. And there were some picture added to that complaint. It is worth noting that the facility that was used for testing does not have windows. Therefore, the thickness of the walls and the evacuation exits, everything was there. They were in compliance with the regulation and the legislation regarding the simple structured shelters. So in my opinion, we have complied to the requirements of the order of the selection, in particular the Article 12, as well as, a logical approach of the situation in which the candidates and the rest of the citizens of Ukraine live. We definitely need to watch the opportunity to have more concentrations into undergoing certain testing or selection. Therefore, we cannot say that the air raid alarm could impact the concentration ability of the candidates. I am not here to basically judge by how much are people sensitive to air raid alarms. This definitely is a relevant question to all the citizens that now live in the country of Ukraine. The most important question for me is whether the equal conditions were provided to every participant and whether the Commission declared in their regulations, just as well as verbally in the communication with the candidates, we have complied to everything that was required. And therefore, I am about to do my voting from the standpoint of the fact whether we have satisfied the requirements and whether the facility really allowed us to consider it as the one that has decent level of security during the testing. Definitely, all of you as members of the selection committee, we would all want to have a better numbers of candidates for the next stages of selection so that we have an opportunity to assess the candidates and in such a way to suggest the cabinet of ministers the best candidate out of all of the participants. But as for now, the situation is as it is. In particular, we have just one candidate that crossed the threshold. We have not yet completed the testing, so it is too early for us to claim the final results, final outcomes of the selection. So, colleagues, if there are no comments from our end, I suggest that we go straight to the voting. And during the voting, you can definitely talk about your position if you would consider it necessary. Okay, so for this voting, we would like to raise the question of satisfaction of complaints from Nikitin and Bourget regarding the fact that there were no sufficient, no decent security measures provided to run the aptitude test. And so their request is to reconsider the opportunity to organize the testing once again. Dear colleagues, please tell me, do we satisfy such complaints and do we consider the opportunity to have the second chance for everybody to run the test or not? Mr. Wolf, would you like to satisfy the complaints or not satisfy, or do you abstain from the position regarding those complaints, please?
I'm voting for rejecting the complaints because equality of chances is the most important thing, and every candidate took the test under the same conditions. We had a secured facility to do that. So I don't see any reason to go with the complaints. So I'm voting for rejecting.
Дякую, пане Вульф. Пане
Thank you,
Сергію.
Mr. Wolf. Mr. Serhiy,
З урахуванням всієї
with the
інформації
consideration
озвученої,
of all of the
я
information
голосую
that was
проти
just spoken, I
задоволення
vote
зазначених
against the satisfaction of the above-mentioned complaints.
Пані Анжеліко.
Madam Angelica,
Я голосую проти
I
задоволення
vote
цих скарг.
against the satisfaction of these
Дякую.
complaints.
Пані Валентино.
Madam Valentina,
Враховуючи ту обставину,
with the
що,
consideration of the
місце
circumstance
проведення
that the
даного
location
тестування
where
було
the
визначено
aptitude
на
testing
основі
was
тендерної
set
процедури,
as the
яка
result of the
також
tender
передбачала
procedures, which
відповідність
also
місця проведення,
suggested that there should be a decent location selected from the security standpoint and safety standpoint. As for this time and date, I think that these complaints cannot be satisfied. That's why I vote against satisfaction of both of the complaints. Thank you, Madame Valentina. Thank you. My voice is also against the satisfaction of these complaints. I already shared about my position. And as for me, the Commission did not violate our own obligations and the statements of the order for the selection that we have accepted ahead of a time. And now, Madame Rita, how would you like to vote?
Thank you very much for giving me the floor. My position is slightly different. I would vote for yes. I had raised this issue in the previous working meeting. So my question is still in the exceptional circumstances that arose, whether we have done enough to ensure that the outcome of the testing is fully robust and beyond any doubt. So since the test took place during an active error alert and the premises were actually formally designated as a shelter, but these are non-standard conditions for the testing. And I would say that this raises the question of whether the circumstances affected concentration and performance, considering also that only one candidate passed this test. So, and also being coherent with my previous position, for me, the question is not only whether the procedure could continue, but whether the conditions were fully suitable to ensure a reliable assessment of the candidates. I also don't think that the absence of objections from candidates to be decisive in this context. I also think that it's important to maintain the credibility of the process. So my position doesn't have to do with any specific candidate. It has to do with equality to all participants. So for this reason, I would be in favor of redoing the test. But of course, this wouldn't mean reconsidering the results that were achieved by the successful candidate that passed the test, who of course would keep their scores. So for these reasons, I would vote for yes. Thank you.
Дякую дуже, пані Ріто.
Thank you very much, Madame Rita. But at the same time, we need to count the voices. Madame Angelica, the floor is yours. Following the results of the voting, to satisfy the complaints, there was one member of the Commission who voted for. Against the satisfaction of the above-mentioned complaints, we had 5 members of the Commission. In such a way, the decision is made. Therefore, in accordance with current legislation, the decision is made with none less than 4, and out of the 4, there should be 2 candidates suggested by the foreign partners. So the decision is accepted with the majority of the voices. So thank you, Madame Angelica. Following the agenda and following the decision of the Commission, we have no additional questions right now regarding the organizations, other than we would inform the candidates with the decision of this Commission. And definitely there's going to be a minutes of this meeting, and we would speak of the all of the arguments that were used in this meeting. Nevertheless, I would like to ask whether you members of the Commission have any other business questions that you would want to raise to the discussion during the official meeting. Okay, thank you. In this case, I need to remind to all of the candidates, to all of our audience, and to the candidate who would participate in the selection. Next stage is practical assignment. The candidate is already informed of the of the time and format of this practical testing, and the results of the practical testing, they would be added to the information that the members of the commission would assess before the interview and during the interview. Concurrently with that, we also run the analysis of the integrity, which is also provided by legislation and the documents that the commission has adopted. And the commission would also inform via the website of the Cabinet of Ministers, just like with the rest of the social media and the regular media. So all of the results of the selections and the information regarding the interview and where would it be possible to watch it, we would inform about all of that. Thank you to all of the members of the commission. Since our daily agenda is already exhausted, I would like to suggest everybody having a good day and goodbye.
Все добре. На все добре.
All the best. All the best.
Bye.
Goodbye.